major development challenges in the region. And what are the value that we bring? First-hand understanding. So like there's this saying in Hausa language, only a woman knows what a woman is going through. So we think that the same applies to youth. So only youth know what youth is going through, and that is how we can be able to address better youth programming. There's youth perspective and energy, our ideas, our innovation, and matter of fact, this world is turning into a digital world. How do we grasp from that, learn from that, and share those experiences with the non-youth, especially in the region? There's also a huge return on investment for care. So that reduced costs associated with staff turnover. It cultivates the organizational culture we want, giving space for new innovative ideas and building staff to implement them. With that being said, we were able to start a mentorship program where youth and non-youth are able to co-mentor each other. So our objectives are, first, we want to shape CARE's vision for youth in West Africa and within the CARE Federation. So first off, we were able to implement this objective by making sure that we contributed to the Vision 2030 strategy. And in West Africa, the session was entirely led by the youth. And the readouts, the way we want to think of the strategy, how we will implement the Vision 2030 strategy, all that was led by youth and were organized by the youth. We just finished last week our regional conference around Vision 2030, and all the organizing team were from the youth network, and they had resource people have helped them out throughout the Confederation. We also want to advocate for a strong youth agenda and make sure that our voices are heard loud and clear. We want to keep regional leadership accountable, so making sure that they do listen to us. They make sure that they integrate youth in the RLT. Matter of fact, I am a member of the regional leadership team, and I am also one of the founding members of the CARE Youth Network. So with that being said, that we'll make sure that when the RLT are taking decisions, that they hear our voices, that they make sure that they don't put us aside. Because one thing we have to point out is that in West Africa, usually culturally, when the elders are speaking, we, the youth, have to listen. But this changes the dynamic. So it was really challenging to see how youth are also trying to give their inputs and making sure that they are heard. It is clear that not all of them accepted that way. But we're still trying to take things forward, and things have changed. In the beginning, it was really hard, but now I think everybody has accepted the CARE Youth Network. So yeah, that's how also we're able to have a presence in planning and decision, and also making sure that we are always reminding the leadership that, listen, we said we want to have better youth programming, so what are we doing about it? What do you think should be the next steps, and things like that. Our second objective is to develop the next generation of care with the youth at the core. So for that, we need leadership capacity and training and things like that. So I talked about the mentorship program where non-youth mentors were able to coach youth mentors, and the youth mentors were able to coach their non-youth mentors. So it was a co-mentorship where both were learning from each other, or I could also call it a buddyship. We also want to make sure that we are changing hiring practices and making sure that we are able to retain youth staff. In some of the country offices, they even hired youth HRs to be able to make this objective a reality. Also, one thing that we want to point out is to make sure that we have career objectives and development plans that we would be submitting to the leadership and making sure that they are helping us achieve those goals. For example, in Mali, I know that they were able to do some fundraising, and They have funds for youth staff who want to pursue like capacity building or a training to be able to help them in their career. And those funds are available for them if they are not able to to pay for themselves. And also one thing we also want to have is that we should have expertise between youth within care. So we don't have all the same background. So how do we learn from each other? That's something that we do, and we interact throughout on WhatsApp. We also share knowledge on by email, and we talk to each other and make sure that we build each other capacities. And the third objective is to build more and better work with youth within care. So how do we make inroads in country offices without existing programming? So how do we talk to others? How do we partner with other youth-led organizations? How do we learn from them? Those are the questions that we're still asking ourselves, and how do we implement that? We want to develop meaningful and mutual constructive partnership, making sure that we really learn from the youth outside of care. And how do they also, one thing we also ask throughout our service is how do they see care, and how do they think that we can better talk to them and be able to welcome them in our work. We also want to focus on incorporating technology into our work, especially now with teleworking, and the world is becoming more digital. So how do we implement that in our work, and how do we also make sure that all the youth within care are able to have access to technology? So our action plan for FY20, which is still ongoing for FY 2021, is that we want to make sure that we have a youth task force. So in each country office, we have representative of the care youth network. We have ideally one in the head office and one in the in the field office, sorry, and making sure that we also mix within male and female within the country offices. We are making sure that everything is youth inclusive, and also we were able to participate in our Care Vision 2030 agenda. We also want to have a next generation of care where we are developing mentorships and developing staff's capacities, have defined career pathways, and also be implemented, also making sure that we are giving our say in the hiring practices. And lastly, it's about the care youth impact. So how do we leverage on ongoing programs, and how do we also make sure that we have future programming that will be able to sustain to youth? And lastly, we really want to make sure that all technology and innovation are included in whatever we will be doing for the youth. So yeah, with the, I think I've gone through this already, so I will just pass the slides, sorry. With that being said, we were able to have an exchange with youth in Austria. So when I went to Austria, I was able to meet with two separate groups of young people, and they had a lot of questions around what is our work and how do we work with young people, or what is the difference and the differences with between living in Africa and living in Austria. What is easy for them, and how do we build that bridge to make sure that we are able to exchange with each other. So ongoing discussions are there, and we were trying to see how can we even have an exchange where we'll bring some of the youth from Austria to Africa and see if they can work for 1 or 2 months, and also the other way around. So those are discussions that we're still having, and see how we can learn from each other. Do you guys have any questions?
Do you find that youth vary from age groups? I mean, would a 15-year-old be interacting differently than a 20-year-old versus a 25-year-old?
Yes, so that's something we have seen. the mentalities are not quite the same. So that's why we want, like, 15, if you're 15, you're still going to school. So that's why we really started it from 18 to 35. And when you are interacting with somebody who is less than 18, they really are more focused around social networks, studies, how do they build both of them, and things like that. But when you talk with somebody who's over 18, it's more, how do I use what I know to implement my work? And also the issues that I see in my community, how do I leverage from that? And how do I make sure that I am a part of somebody who found solution to solve this, the issues that are within my community?
Thank you.
Yeah, excuse me. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about your vision 2020? No.
The vision or
2020, yeah.
the 2030 vision. So yes, our vision for 2030 is that we want to see how do we better change, or we are focusing on three major priorities, which is the impact. So how do we have a better impacting within the communities we serve? Organization, how do we have a better organization around our brand, our image, who we are and the way we work? And then also the resources is, where do we get the resources to be able to achieve our Vision 2030? So those are the keys for our Vision 2030, is really, how do we also change our ways of working? How do we adapt to the new ways of working? How do we make sure that we are integrating all those social norms, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement? We've seen that, okay, maybe we need to take a stop and really think of how we are working and how do we integrate more what the communities are saying. So one thing that we see is that we are talking more with our Village Saving and Loans Association women and see what they think about everything and listen from them and take what they're saying and implementing that and learning from them, basically, to be able to change our ways of working.
Yeah, among you, my concern about the resources. Do you already think about how to get the resources? Because the resources are the most important. Without any resources, you cannot go further.
Yes, we are definitely thinking of how to get more resources. There are pathways that we're trying and thinking around and seeing how we will line up a strategy for resource mobilization. And when we talk about resources, we don't just talk about funds, but we also talk about human resources. So how do we make sure that we have both? Those are the way that we're thinking and trying to answer to those questions, and including our partners, our external partners, donors that we have. How do we bring all those people together, talk to them, and see how we can come up with a great strategy that will work and benefit us.
And about the better organization, what do you think about better organization? What do you think you can improve how you can improve your organization?
How can we improve our organization? So that's like I said, we have to listen to external people, not internal people, to know what they think of us, how they see us. And we have to take what they're saying, take their feedback, and see how we can implement it in our framework, in our ways of working, and improve our ways of working in our organizational structure.
And about the impact, how can be your impact? How do you think that you can impact other people?
By listening to the communities we serve. It's the only way we can have a better impact. We have to incorporate them in what we do. So what we do is, before implementing any program, we go to the communities and we listen to what they say. But we think that we need to be doing more of that and listening more to them, so we know how we can serve them better.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the input that you get from community elders or community leaders. What sort of pushback have you received from your programs, or has it been, I know you mentioned that there were some not necessarily challenges, but there was some work done to get community leaders on board with these youth programs. What sort of what sort of pushback did you get, if any, and what strategies did you use to kind of bring those key individuals on board?
So it was two aspects. The community leaders, it was more, that was easy to talk to them because of the background work we had with the VSLA women. That's have been since 1991. We
breakout room and then the 30 seconds in the countdown. So